Welcome. You're listening to The Best of Investing. I'm your host, Edward Brown. Our phone number is 888-912-1190. Use that number to answer the trivia questions for a 5-pack tanning certificate given away during the show. That certificate's not sponsored by the radio station, but by Tambella Tanning Salon with 2 locations in San Francisco and 1 in Marin. And since we are in NFL season, I decided to make a trivia theme NFL players. We'll see how well you guys know. Now, today, this is kind of a little different than normal. We have 2 special guests. First, a friend of mine who is a 4-time Academy Award winner, Ben Burtt, sound creator for the Star Wars and Indiana Jones franchises, as well as the voice of the movie Wall-E, and creator of the sounds for E.T., as well as a host of other movies, and welcoming back Dane Moeller of Primary Residential Mortgage. So we're going to talk a little fun movie stuff, and then we'll talk a little business mortgage stuff. So Ben and Dane, welcome back, Dane, and welcome Ben to the Best of Investing.
Hello, nice to be here.
All right. So Ben, tell us first, how did you get started doing movies, and then working your way up to the point where you got to work with George Lucas and Spielberg, et cetera?
Basically, I didn't want to grow up. So
Yeah.
as the 10-year-old, 12-year-old, I started making films in my backyard with my friends. And like boys always do, the films were violent and full of fights and spaceships, airplanes, and our antics in the yard.
Yeah.
And we found it, we loved doing it. It was a form of play originally, but we made films and got much more serious about it in high school age and started learning a bit about cameras. And one of my hobbies all along had been sound recording, because when I was quite small, 6, I was ill. I was confined to the house in bed. My father, who was a university professor, brought home a big machine. It was a tape recorder. Now, in the mid 1950s, a tape recorder was very high tech. People didn't have it in their home. So showed me how to record things. Of course, it had to stay in the house. It was so heavy.
Yeah.
But I started recording my voice and my friends, and then I started recording television shows and and listening to them. And I got very interested in how a movie soundtrack was put together, especially the sound effects. But it was just a hobby. It was only a hobby and one of my interests, along with sports and other things in that time period. To continue on, I kept it as a hobby. I went to Allegheny College in Pennsylvania for education. I got a degree in physics. I thought I would be a scientist, maybe teach or go on to be an astronaut and go into space, because that was the time in which the moon landings were first taking place. But I still maintain this hobby of movie making. And in the summers when I was off from school, got together with my friends, and over 2 summers, we made a big feature film, you might say, called Yankee Squadron. And it was a World War I aviation action epic. And we did it for fun. It involved a lot of special effects to make it look like we're flying. And that film won a national award. The National Student Film Festival, and entered it. And so that was a surprise. Of course, the film had a soundtrack which played on a tape recorder along with the movie. You had to synchronize it by just stopping and starting the machines.
Yeah.
So it was a relatively crude system. And I began to think that this hobby of movie making was going to be, it was going to get bigger in my life. Didn't know how to do it and still be a scientist. But a very interesting thing happened. Arthur C. Clarke, the author, science fiction author, who also wrote the screenplay for 2001, which had come out while I was in college, and I was fascinated with that movie. He came to the campus at Allegheny as a guest to talk about geostationary satellites. He envisioned a lot of the technology we have today with computers, and I was his escort. And I had some time with him in the classroom while we were waiting for an hour or 2. And I asked him about how they did 2001, how they did the special effects. And he went up to the blackboard and drew pictures. And I really got drawn into visual effects and so on. And I realized that he was a science fiction writer and a scientist, and somehow we combined them and made movies. So I realized maybe I could do this in a career. So after college, I went to a grad school at Syracuse University, learned some things about cameras and film that I didn't know.
Okay. All right. Well, I tell you what, we're going to cut to our first commercial break. We'll come back in, and then we'll get right into all the exciting stuff. I mean, which is good. This is a good background, and then we'll get into Star Wars and all that. Okay. Here is our first trivia question, and we're talking NFL players. And again, just as a reminder, if you know the answer, gentlemen, don't say anything until we get back from break. Okay, I was the first quarterback. We're actually going to give you a few hints on this too. I was the first quarterback to start more than 200 consecutive games. I was drafted by the Falcons in 1991. I was the first player to win 3 NFL MVP awards. Who am I? Call 888-912-1190. First caller with the correct answer wins that tanning certificate. Stay with us. You're listening to The Best of Investing. Don't touch that dial. We're going to be right back. Welcome back to The Best of Investing. I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with my special guests, Ben Burtt and Dane Moeller. First trivia question, NFL players. I was the first quarterback to start more than 200 consecutive games. I was drafted by the Falcons. Of course, that's kind of almost a trick because you don't think of them as a Falcon. I was the first player to win 3 NFL MVP awards. Who am I? Anyone?
I'm terrible at sports trivia, but
Okay.
I know that Brett Favre has the longest streak. So I'm going to go with that one.
Brett Favre. That's right. Everyone knows he plays for the Packers, but he actually was drafted by the Falcons.
Oh, wow.
And he got traded.
He was first over 200. I just knew he had the longest one.
You knew, very, very good. Okay. I want to make a quick
That's
mention.
great. My guess was Darth Vader.
Which we're going to get into in just a second here. Just want to make a quick mention here for the Palio restaurant in San Francisco. It's been voted best restaurant by San Franciscans. So it's got to be good. I've eaten there before. It's great. It's in the heart of downtown. Palio, P-A-L-I-O restaurant, phenomenal food. They just redid the restaurant about a year or so ago. It's awesome. Check them out. Okay, so we are in the studio here, so to speak, Zoom wise, with Ben Burtt, who's won actually 4. I think is that correct? 4 Academy Awards.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so can you go ahead and let's shift into how did you get to work with Lucas and Spielberg, right to the heart of that.
Yeah. After college, I got some further education in just the technology of film. I made an animated film and got some attention with that. And I got a scholarship to go to USC Cinema. And of course, USC Cinema, that still has a very high reputation for turning out filmmakers. And so I went there as a grad student. And I was interested, of course, in many aspects of filmmaking, but I love sound and I love sound effects. And I was one of the few students that was really interested in creative sound, making things, inventing ideas, how to use sound effectively. And that caught the attention of George Lucas, who had been a former USC graduate. I didn't know him, but they were looking for someone to work on a film called The Star Wars. Oh, yeah. Starring Luke Starkiller. That was the original thing.
Oh, and right.
Yeah. And I got an interview. I was recommended by the university. I was just finishing my degree, and I finished on Thursday and had a job interview on Monday.
Wow,
pretty unusual. And I got the job, and they wanted some young student type, which I was, that they could pay minimum scale, which was a lot more money than I was earning since I had no job.
Sure.
And I was sent out with a tape recorder and a script from the movie. My first assignment was to figure out a voice for Chewbacca, the Wookiee. That's very good. You're going to save me time. But they wanted to develop his voice before shooting takes place because it would affect how the actor would behave in the mask.
Oh, yeah.
And they wanted to have some confidence that it would work. So went to work on Chewbacca, and I looked at the script, and there were hundreds of things in it, from weapons to Jawas to Death Stars. And I said, do you want sound for all of this? And the answer was, yeah, go ahead. We see what you can do. So I spent a year while they were off shooting the movie. And during that time, I traveled all over the LA area, basically, going to aircraft factories, runways,
Oh, wow.
recording animals in marine land of the Pacific, uh, recording all kinds of mechanical devices in factories and automotive shops because the film needed motors and all sorts of things. When I recorded the air races in Mojave,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
at that time there were no safety restrictions in particular. You could just walk out under the pylons and have planes screaming by at 300
Wow.
miles an hour. A lot of those planes became spaceships, even though they were propeller warbirds like P-51s.
Yeah.
I would slow them down, and they still had a sense of real strong energy, but they didn't sound like an airplane anymore. And that's what, say, for instance, the Millennium Falcon was based on a P-51 Mustang, pretty much, with some thunderclaps mixed into it when it passes by. So I had hundreds of things to create, and they didn't want to use a normal library that a studio might have had from other previous science fiction films. They wanted to be customized, and George Lucas had the concept that he wanted it to all sound real. That is, not synthetic, not electronic sounds, but
Yeah.
sounds derived from the real world. Rusty hinges or the spaceships and the objects in the film are supposed to be used and utilitarian. So by recording real things, it gave an impression to the listener that these were authentic. It gave a naturalism to it.
Yeah.
As long as you could disguise things a little bit so they didn't immediately recognize things. So it was a real journey, and it kind of, by the time it was done, the first film, I was kind of being referred to as a sound designer, term which is still used today. It's never been an official term from Hollywood standpoint. And the success with the first Star Wars film, and an Oscar on that one for creating alien and creature and robot voices, led to employment at Lucasfilm for a couple decades and many films.
We're going to get into it. Boy, I tell you, this is going fast, but this is very fascinating stuff because Dane, I know you're going to ask him a question here or there. All right, guys, second trivia question here. I was the Saints quarterback for most of the 1970s. I never played in a playoff game. The speed limit signs on Ole Miss campus were changed to bear my number. Who am I? All right. Call 888-912-1190. First caller with correct answer wins that tanning certificate. By the way, extra credit if you know what other quarterback came out at the same time. Don't touch that dial. Best of Investing will be right back. Welcome back to the Best of Investing one more time. I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with my special guests, Ben Burtt and Dane Muller. Second trivia question. I was the Saints quarterback for most of the 1970s. I never played in a playoff game. The speed limit signs on Ole Miss campus were changed to bear my number. Who am I?
No guess from me. Ben?
Darth Vader.
Yeah, Darth Vader. Yeah, no. This would be Archie Manning.
Oh,
Archie Manning. And
wow.
the bonus question, who came out at the same time? There was like neck and neck, and he played for the Houston Oilers. Dan Pastorini. But that was just an extra bonus question here. I'll make a
I scored 0. Yeah,
that's right. Okay. If you get the next one, then actually next one's hard, but 1 out of 3 gets you in the Hall of Fame. Want to make a quick mention here for Mountain Mike's Pizza in San Rafael. Pizza the way it ought to be. Every time I even give the commercial for them, I get hungry for pizza and the cheese. Check them out, Mountain Mike's Pizza in San Rafael. All right, Ben Burtt, a 4-time Academy Award winner. It's so funny when I say that, immediately people think of an actor, but in your case, it's the sound. But actually, you were an actor in WALL-E. You're the voice of WALL-E.
Well, Bill, I haven't. I'm actually in the Screen Actors Guild, so even though I'm not a very good actor, I have played lots of robots.
Okay.
I'm the voice of R2D2, which is an electronic language, which is fashioned partly out of my own voice and some electronic equipment. And I did maybe 13 or 14 voices in most of the Star Wars films. Incidental, commanders or stormtroopers that one
You're
line.
like Mel Blanc.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not on the, no, I'm not at the peak of the mountain like Mel Blanc in his voice,
Okay,
but
how did you get the sounds for like the lightsaber and Darth Vader's you know
yeah. Well, Darth Vader's breathing was done in San Rafael.
Huh.
It was I was visiting. I went over and visited a scuba shop, which is still there today,
Oh yeah,
over by the freeway, Terra Linda.
yeah. Mhm.
At that time, it was called Bamboo Reef, I think. And they had classes in the evening, and I went and asked the owner, can I record some of the breathing apparatus that was laying around on the floor by the pool because the students had left, and there were different regulators and things. And he let me do it. And so I started recording myself breathing through different mechanisms
Yeah.
because there were different brands. I had a tiny little microphone I could slip actually inside the regulators. So you're
Oh
getting
yeah.
it's like kind of a microphone in your throat somewhere.
Gotcha.
You get a
Yeah.
super close breathing with a opening and closing valve as you breathe,
Yeah.
the old style. And I didn't know it at the time. I recorded several different ones. I took them back to the studio, slowed them down just a bit to give them some more mass,
Mhm.
and picked one particular breathing I had done and tried it out for Darth Vader. So, and it's stayed there forever.
That's
It's,
awesome. And then
it,
for the lightsaber, how did that come about?
the lightsaber was one of the very first things I did. It was strange because I saw a painting at the time of my job interview. They showed me some artwork done by Ralph McQuarrie, who was the concept artist for Star Wars. He had a picture of these Vader and Ben Kenobi fighting with lightsabers,
Yeah.
glowing sticks, and I had an immediate idea what that should sound like, this humming sound. And I was a movie projectionist at the time. It's a part-time job, and in the booth of the campus movie theater where I projected, there was a projector that had a motor attached to it that when you turned it on had a great hum. It just sang like a little musical note, especially if you leaned against it and grabbed the flywheel and pushed it and stressed it a bit. And so I recorded that. Later, I added a little bit of a accidental sound I recorded, which was I had a microphone too close to the back of the television, and it picked up the buzz from the TV picture tube. Remember picture tubes
Oh
before
yeah. Sure.
before this way.
You're sort of like the MacGyver of
Uh-huh.
sound. Just pick this, try to put it together. Yeah.
Yeah, you get things in your head, you get a list of things, and then as you're going around the real world, you discover them.
Yeah.
You may set out to do one sound on a given day. Like once I went to White Sands Missile Range to record rocket launches,
Hmm.
thinking they'd be great for spaceships. I needed something with a lot of rumble and roar, and the rockets were not that interesting. They were not what I expected. They sounded very crackly and kind of thin.
Huh.
But the air conditioner at the Las Cruces Motel, something was wrong with it. While I'm sleeping, you hear a a throbbing sound, and I put my microphone on that, and that was the spaceship. So that was the success of the mission.
Of course, you realize now the next time we watch a Star Wars film, we're going to be, it's not going to sound the same.
Yeah,
That's the air conditioner.
Yeah, it's always making things out of real things.
Yeah.
And it's fun, but especially being science fiction, you have a lot of freedom to design things because you're creating sounds for technology that people are not familiar with. But
Yeah.
to make the illusion complete, if you use real world sounds, real motors, creaky doors, whatever it might be, airplanes, people recognize it as being authentic. You just have to disguise it a little bit, give it the character
Yeah.
that you think that it should have in the movie.
All I know is the Three Stooges.
Well, I'll tell you, I've been inspired by the Three Stooges. It was one of the things I loved growing up. In fact, I confess I still watch them.
Of course.
At least once a week, I see an episode.
All right, tell you what, we're going to go to our third commercial trivia question. Ben, Burtt, it's been a pleasure. We're definitely going to have you on. We're going to spend the next segment talking with Dane because we got to get something about what's going on with mortgage interest rates. All right. Third trivia question. My nickname, they're talking football players. My nickname is a classic video game character. I scored 4 touchdowns in 2006. I was suspended by the NFL for the 2007 season. Who am I? So the real trick here is the video game character is his nickname.
Yeah.
All right, 888-912-1190. First caller with the correct answer wins that tanning certificate. Stay with us. You're listening to the best of investing. Don't touch that dial. See, we still use dials here in the radio. All right, we'll be right back. Welcome back to the best of investing. Edward Brown, along with Ben Burtt and Dane Moeller. All right, our third trivia question on a football player. My nickname is a classic video game character. I scored 4 touchdowns in 2006. I was suspended by the NFL for the 2007 season. Who am I? Anyone?
It's got to be a Mario somebody.
Mario? No, maybe Pac-Man?
Yes,
Pac-Man
Adam
Jones?
Pac-Man Jones.
Oh,
There you go.
Very good, Dane. All
I
right,
was just trying to think classic video games.
classic video games. Okay, so the gentleman who got 2 out of 3, not bad. Dane Moeller from Primary Residential Mortgage. Tell us what is going on in the real estate market with mortgages. It's been all over the map.
Well, I mean, the map has only been going one way. It's like the profile of a mountain that you're about to climb, and we've been climbing it. This week hit the highest interest rate since 1996 for mortgages. So we're going back a long time since we've seen rates like this. I started 21 years ago doing this, and rates are higher now than they were then, and they were never higher in between.
I still remember 1979, 1980, 1981. I think it was 81 when it finally hit the high of like 20.75% prime rate.
And anytime you talk about high rates, people bring that up. But then you have to remember what house prices were at the time.
Good point. Good point. 150,000.
And affordability is really the real thing to look at is affordability, right? What do people's income related to housing expense? And we're stressing that right now. I mean, there are still buyers. People are still buying houses. It's still happening. But we're stressing affordability with our current home prices.
Have they changed the ratios? Like, what is it like? The magic number is 34% or 43% of your income.
43 is the official number, but really you can do up to 50. I mean, that's kind of 43 is kind of the official government number, but 50 is kind of the accepted number generally. And that hasn't changed. Just interest rates have pushed up and prices continue to rise. I mean, here in Marin we saw a little dip through the summer, but now we're seeing prices come back up.
I guess that's probably to low inventory, because I got to think that with interest rates going up the way they have been, you get guys like me who refinanced when the rates were super low during COVID, and it's just practically unaffordable to move because I can't replace that mortgage at that same rate or anything close to it. So I got to think companies like Home Depot are going to do really well because people are going to say, I'm just going to remodel rather than move.
Yeah.
Right.
I was thinking today I might want to short moving van companies because no one's going to be moving, right? And contractors have remained extremely busy because people are remodeling and figuring how to stay in place because you can't replace the mortgage. In fact, you can't even get double the interest rate that you had, most likely. Yeah. And in California, your property taxes are protected. So unless you're over a certain age and you're able to move those, most likely if you bought more than 3, 4, or 5 years ago, property taxes are much lower. So you get a double whammy when you're moving. And now we're seeing really selling and moving out of necessity or first-time home buyers or second home or investment property buyers. But really the standard, hey, move every 7 years, as your career takes off and you save more money and, you kind of do that standard thing, that's on pause, and it'll take a number of years for that to work its way out as sales happen and these interest rates of this, 2021, 2020 move through the system.
So your business, which probably, I don't know what the percentage was, but a fair amount of it was refis, is now primarily just purchases, right?
Yeah. So we were about 50-50 refi purchase. And now it's about 95% purchase. Wow. Still some refinances. I mean, it's still there, if you look at the debt level in the country, we just passed $1 trillion collectively of credit card debt, right? And the savings rates from COVID, when everyone had stimulus checks and weren't able to go out and save money or spend money, right? Saving levels were huge because you were stuck in your house. Savings are way down. Credit cards are way up. So there are still people that could benefit from refinance if they have, 150,000 in credit card debt, and maybe they only have a $300,000 or $400,000 mortgage, right? Because they're paying 20% over here and 3% over there, but that 20% is not tax deductible and it's eating them alive. So there are still reasons to refi, divorces, partner buyouts. There's things that have to happen. But it's not, no one's refining just to, save a few bucks on the interest rate. That is not happening.
Well, it used to be a long time ago, when you had to pay a lot of points, it didn't make sense. But then when it got to be where you paid hardly any points, you just had to do a little bit of paperwork.
Yeah. I mean, you look at the break even, and we try to save people money where, hey, it costs, in 1 year, you make up the cost of a refi, or maybe 18 months, and that's what you look at on those. And, it'll happen again for everyone who's buying now. I mean, the alternative. So if you're somebody like yourself, right, you're comfortable in your house, stay put, right? Maybe think about a second home if you have it. But for someone who wants to be a buyer, as a first-time home buyer, buying now could be extremely intimidating. I mean, you have interest rates in the high sevens, intimidating. But if we're waiting another year for rates to fall, home prices are going to rise pretty drastically when rates come down to the fives again. So you'll end up with the same thing.
I was reading that they're probably going to maybe even take up to the 8% range. Ben, did you have any questions for Dane?
How can I become richer?
Stay away from mortgage. That's how you can become richer. I think you're rich in your stories in your life, and it sounds pretty amazing to me.
Well, I am. I'm thankful for the riches I have, which
I mean,
plenty of great family and grandchildren that are here in Marin. It's great.
Yeah.
If you had a time machine, which it sounds like something you could invent, quite frankly, we could all go back to 2009 through 13 or 2019 and 20 and buy every piece of real estate we could possibly convince someone to lend us money for. We could all be rich because even when those times seem really scary, I mean, you think about 10, 11, 12, those were really scary years.
Yeah.
And anyone who was brave enough to buy real estate at that time, oh my gosh, they made out. And right now is extremely scary time again. Yeah. And I think we'll look back and say, God, 2023, that was crazy. And that was a huge buying opportunity. Why didn't we do it?
When you can get it. Well, I remember Warren Buffett had said when we had during the Great Recession, he said, I think you should buy single family homes. He says, if I could figure out a way to manage all of it, he says, I'd be doing that. And he was right. It's just the challenge of trying to manage a whole bunch of different single family homes all over the place. I mean, it's funny because our Pacific Southwest Note Fund, the fund that I manage, we have loans all over the country now rather than just in Texas. But I don't have to manage it because we just coupon clip, so makes it a little easier. So Dane, you're an independent mortgage broker. You're not tied to any one company. So it's kind of nice to have that independence. How do people get a hold of you if they have questions on refinancing or purchasing?
So you can always give me a call, 415-870-2752. That's probably the easiest way. Or shoot an email. It's D as in David, M as in Mary, OLER at PrimeRes. That's PRIMERES as in Sam.com. Those would be the easiest way. And happy to chat with anybody, whether they want to talk current market or long-term plan, and see if we can help them out.
Very good. All right. Audience, stay with us. The Best of Investing will be right back with some closing comments. Don't touch that dial. Welcome back to the Best of Investing. Last time for today, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with my special guests, Ben Burtt and Dane Moeller. Off the air, Ben was starting to ask a question to I guess both of us, but mostly Dane, about the fact that there is a property that George Lucas used to own in San Rafael, where the owner, he sold the building, and the owner is potentially thinking about tearing it down. Is that right?
Well, that's what we've heard the rumors. I mean, they definitely have ended the lease over there for the filmmakers that were on site. There were independents that were leasing the model shop and this theater. And we've been told that it will probably be gutted. Maybe the walls will be there and turned into something else. I don't know what, you know.
Yeah.
And
So I guess what I would say is because I'm a landlord also is I don't know how much rent they're paying and what the likelihood is for them to continue on. And so is it worth more to it for a new use? It's, because you could.
Well, I'm sure that's what the owners calculated, that
Yeah.
there is a different use for it. I guess I'm thinking it more from a cultural standpoint.
Yeah.
You tear down a purpose-built facility, or at least you change it. I mean, it's got soundproof rooms for mixing,
Yeah.
recording. It's got a beautiful theater that's all with velvet seats and a giant screen, and a soundstage, which is where you could shoot a whole TV show.
Sounds like something that, people should be approaching the city council to designate, cultural or historical significance and, zone it for only its current use. Because otherwise, like Edward was saying, capitalism will push it to whatever could generate more money for the landlord, right?
A nuclear
that's
power
the
plant.
unfortunate reality of the system we have in place, that some of these cultural, cool, amazing spots, will not be that if they're not generating the rent.
Well, it's probably not. It's not old enough to be a historic.
Could be cultural,
though. Maybe.
Yeah, well, Star Wars is getting to that historic age.
Yeah.
Well, a lot happened there. It was Industrial Light and Magic and Sprocket Systems, our sound department. Things, Empire Strikes Back. I mean, Return of the Jedi was the first film was done there. All the films over the years. Pixar was born there in a little room off to the side is a little research group of scientists. The Editoroid, various tools that work their way into the industry have all, become standard items. So there was invention there because Lucas also funded a lot of research and development, which movie studios don't do. So that there was innovative sound, the THX program and the theater alignment program. They changed movie theaters over the whole world, and it came out of the research and the engineers that were working there using that theater as the ultimate standard.
Well, if I had George Lucas's money, I'd throw mine away. So, that's probably what they look at.
Yeah,
that's why they don't do as much research, right?
Yeah. He hasn't been involved with it for a few decades. I'm not sure when he sold it. It's been owned by another company, and it's leased out to film. They up to COVID, they were doing pretty good business building models, shooting commercials there. But there's not a lot of Bay Area production. That's
in LA, right?
Yeah, and so that's hurt it too. So no, I can't argue it as a I can only argue it as a cultural historic. I've just seen so many times purpose-built facilities dismantled, and then sooner or later there's a regret that happened.
Yeah.
And then why did they do that kind of thing? So I know it has nothing to do with being sound financially. Okay, I think the business might pick up and you can use it again.
Well, or the city could buy it and then do tours.
Yeah, or it could be a school.
That's a good point. Well, gentlemen, it's been an absolute pleasure. Ben Burtt, a 4-time Academy Award winner for various movies, all the Star Wars trilogies, or not even a trilogy anymore. It's like a quadrilogy or whatever, and something like that. And Dane Moeller from Primary Residential Mortgage. Here's our thoughts for the day. So I accidentally took out my Blockbuster card when I got carded at a bar. The bouncer said, "Yeah, never mind." And most people are shocked when they find out how bad I am as an electrician. All right, tune in next week to The Best of Investing. We're going to be giving away more free prizes for answering trivia questions. Thanks for listening. On behalf of our team, I'm Edward Brown, wishing you the best of investing. So long.